We are now on the air. Hey everybody, this is Vallen, and welcome to another edition of Tomes and Tales, where us Mischief of Micers all just discuss a graphic novel of our choice from around the world. And in this episode, it's Fun Home, as chosen by LilacSC. Say hi, LilacSC. And we also have Kellisto here. And we also have Kashcah here.
Hello.
And of course, myself, Vallen. Hi, everybody. So, we're just going to be discussing the new one. So, I am going to put LilacSC on the spot because I believe this was her pick.
Yes, it was.
And she could do a little intro, perhaps. Let us know some of the details on this this novel.
Yes. Okay. So I have a little bit about Alison Bechdel. Alison Bechdel, who is the author. Her comic strip, Dykes to Watch Out For, became a countercultural institution among lesbians and discerning non-lesbians all over the planet. In 2006, she published Fun Home, which is what we're going to be talking about, a family tragicomic. Time magazine named it the best book of 2006, describing the tightly architected investigation into her closeted bisexual father's suicide, a masterpiece about two people who live in the same house but different worlds, and their mysterious debts to each other. Fun Home was a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award. It has been adapted into a musical, and on my copy has a musical thing on it.
Mine does not. Mine is sadly lacking, very, very bland.
Adapted into a musical by the playwright Lisa Cron and composer Janine Tesori. It opened on Broadway at the Circle in the Square Theater on April 19th, 2015, and won 5 Tony Awards, including Best Musical. So that's kind of a little thing about Fun Home and Alison Bechdel in general. So I guess I could start a little bit. Fun Home is obviously a graphic novel. It has illustrations like this. Most of the pictures they're all kind of monochromatic. So they're black and white pictures with shades of one color, which is kind of a grayish, bluish, green color. And it's like that throughout the novel. I guess I could start with it's basically flashbacks. Alison Bechdel, when she's growing up, talking about her relationship with her father, and actually her entire family's relationship, living in an old house with her father's curated furnishings inside. He was very interested in antiques and decorating and things like that, landscaping. So basically, it just goes through that and kind of a question, did her father kill himself, which is actually introduced in the beginning of the second chapter, so pretty early on, and then towards the end. So I guess my first question is, did you find the ending satisfying? And I'll go first. Even though it's hard to answer a question like that, since he didn't leave a note or anything like that, and it kind of presents itself to, just the random passerby that it was an accident. The way she ends it out with like Icarus and what's his name? Icarus and I forget what his father's name is. But anyways, when she ends it out like that, what's his name?
Daedalus?
That started with a T.
I can't remember.
I think it was Daedalus. Icarus's dad's name?
Oh, Daedalus. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Anyways,
Daedalus.
Oh, fun.
The Daedalus.
When she's talking about that, or she's comparing their relationship to that, and when I don't know, when she ends it out with her father catching her, I don't know, it just kind of, it felt like a satisfying ending to me, even though the question isn't necessarily answered at the end.
Right. Well, I'm gonna jump up here and as I often do. Sorry, but I'm gonna jump in and say that I felt like the ending was I don't know well, first I should say this graphic novel was very different for me. It was a serious read, kind of a biography, autobiography. I'm not sure which one is applicable. I don't think I use those words very often. So, but essentially, the author writing about herself and her family, and it kept going back over the same points. So there were no big surprises, really. Um, I guess maybe going halfway through, the book was actually starting to slow down a bit for me, and then about halfway through, it started picking up because it was actually giving me some fresh new information instead of just rehashing the older stuff. Um, but because of that, I mean, it going over the topics over and over again, the ending was actually, if anything, just a little bit of a letdown for me, just because I don't know. I was expecting some kind of tiny. I had this little expectation of some kind of climax to the end, but instead it was just like a very slow tying up of a bow at the end there, and then just everything was kind of resolved in my mind. I mean, she wasn't really sure if her father killed himself. I mean, she's of a strong opinion that he was throughout a lot of it. Uh, Personally, I think it was just coincidence that her father died the way he did, um, being hit by a truck. But I mean, it was still a very prevalent and appropriate question. It's even when I say that, it's not a for sure thing. It's questionable. So I would say that the ending was a little bit dissatisfying for me, but I think I was just expecting the book to continue going up. Like it kind of went up, down, went up a bit, and then at the end it just kind of just rounded off slowly for me. I was like, oh, okay, there's the end of the book, and I could tell it was the end. It had been kind of winding itself up there, but
So, wait, why were you dissatisfied with it? I guess I'm confused.
I don't know. I guess I hadn't read too many autobiography type books, let alone graphic novels before. I mean, I've read Mouse, and that was a bit different.
You've
But
read Persepolis as well, haven't you?
Persepolis, yeah. I don't know. It seemed like I don't know. It kind of came to a point at the end, and this is what I learned, and this is what happened. In this one, it was spread throughout so much. The lessons that were that the author was learning that I wasn't feeling like this is the accomplishments that were granted at the end. It was already known before I got there. So I don't know. I felt like like I already knew the ending before it happened. Not that that's a bad thing. I just I don't know. It was presented in a way that was foreign to me, and I'm not sure that. Oh, you want the book?
I
Well,
do.
I felt that it was like the whole book was the ending. Like like when I finished it, it was kind of like I was reading somebody's like diary where they were just trying to get something off their chest, and at the end they just kind of said, okay, it's good, it's out there, I did it, I can move on now. That's kind of how I got that feeling.
I agree. That's the point I was trying to make. That's excellent. I'm so glad you said that. Were you trying to find something there?
Oh, well, I just, I wanted to remember exactly what she said in the last cell. And so I found the ending, actually, I was really satisfied with the ending. I found it very, like, touching, actually. I felt like she came to, like, an understanding of her father that, it definitely progressed, you know, and there wasn't, like, a massive, like, you know, punch at the end, but I did feel like she'd come to a point where she had, like, this understanding of her father that she was very satisfied with. And I think she conveyed that in her ending, and so then I was quite satisfied with the ending. The way that she kind of like wraps it around as well, I thought was really good. So yeah, I liked the ending quite a bit. How she handled it, I mean, because you know the end from the beginning, right? So you're right. You're not going to get that like kind of finale that perhaps you're used to in some other like graphic novels, but I don't think you're gonna get that a lot in autobiographical graphic novels anyway. So I think my expectation from autobiographical graphic novels is quite different as far as like the end goes. Sorry, what was that, Lila?
I think they're memoirs.
Oh, memoirs. Okay, I like that a lot better. Graphic memoir.
Yes. A tragicomedy?
I kept wanting to say Trigenomicon. Every time I look at it, the word morphs into Trigenomicon. I was actually like incredibly happy for her at the end of the book. So I was quite satisfied with that. What about you, Lilac? What did you think of the end?
A lot. Oh, well, I like the ending. I think that you verbalized it a lot better than I did.
Sort of like Jen, or sort of like Kellisto for me, right?
I think it was very cathartic for her, probably, to make this. And even in the acknowledgments at the end, she thanks, I think, her family for not trying to stop her from writing the book.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot, especially in her portrayal of her mother, that could be deemed sensitive, at least from her mother's point of view, which actually made me look up more about her with her mother, and she wrote another one, which I have not read yet.
Wow.
Mother and her relationship. So I'm looking forward to that. I haven't read that one yet. But anyway, back to Fun Home.
I noticed a severe lack of discussion on her siblings.
Yes. Like they were kind of extras in the overall scenes and things, you know, like Mom, she's doing it again, or you know, whatever. Like they were very kind of bit characters in this description or depiction.
I think it was because she was really trying to make it about her parents, and she didn't want to get sidetracked with them, as well as try to respect their views. I mean, you don't want to upset your siblings by putting out an autobiography on your parents and just like turning your siblings accidentally into some kind of like evil entity by, you know, just through some miscommunication of your words or something. But I thought she did really well with having them in there, giving some information about them, but not enough for you to actually pay them much attention. Just know that they're there and that they were a contributing factor. I actually was expecting a lot more from that.
Actually, her own description, she actually does address that. where she describes their home as an artist colony where they ate together but were otherwise absorbed in their separate pursuits.
Yeah.
Them, like, all in a separate room doing their own thing. So they may just not have spent a whole lot of like actual quality time together doing things.
And I think it's always good to kind of assume that you don't know like what the other person's thinking, right? So she can't write like from her brother's perspective, for example, to say like this is how he felt about it, or this was his experience with it, because it's just impossible to say that, right? I mean, she has her experience and her perspective, and it's impossible to have anybody else's. So, and I think that's actually where she comes from with her dad to some extent as well. I mean, it's impossible to know whether or not he purposefully stepped in front of the truck, or whether it was coincidence. And I actually have a lot of respect for her for for the way she's handled both of those items, like her siblings, and not kind of projecting her views onto them, and her dad, and I mean that must be like incredibly difficult to accept, that you're never gonna know, what was truly like. Was that his intention, or was that, a coincidence? So massive respect for her for that.
But then again, her dad is kind of laid bare in this book, especially with the indiscretion with an underage person, and I believe in his class. I mean, talking about that, and he goes to counseling and things like that. That was, even reading it felt like a very hard time in family, and you could feel the tension with her mom, with her relationship with her dad at the time, and remembering things that were happening. Then it just,
Her dad
So what do you think about
really promiscuous.
what do you think about these kinds of things coming to light about someone who can't respond?
That's a really good question.
I personally have always hated so-called family secrets, and being the quiet kid who sat in the corner, I know lots of things that probably I wasn't supposed to know because they just forgot I was there. I don't tell other people, cousins and stuff about it, but if it comes up, I'm just like, I just let it all out. I'm like, I think it's a waste of time. People have, the things that I'm sure I've done lots of things I'm not proud of. And I can't think of anything that I wouldn't actually. I mean, I pick and choose who I share it with, but I don't know. I think that family secrets just cause more problems in the end. Now, for knowing at that time when she was a child, that's something completely different. But as she grew older, although sharing it with the world, I don't know. I guess he's gone, so he probably doesn't care. But that's kind of that's a thin line to cross. But
And I think that crosses over into that whole sibling thing I was thinking of, is that she was being respectful to those that aren't passed on, and taking advantage of the fact that, well, her father's gone, so she can write this. I don't think she would have written this if he was still around. I think she still would have been dealing with the issues in other ways. Well, I guess she could have written it, but she probably wouldn't have published it or anything. I mean, she got into the habit of the whole diary, and the fact that she seemed to be fairly respectful of things. But, I mean, I don't recall her mother's death in the book. Did her mother pass?
not in the book.
Yeah, so then I would presume that her mother was still living at the time of this being published, and therefore, that kind of causes a conundrum. But I could tell that the big focus of this novel was her father and her relationship with him, and the impact on her family, specifically herself and her mother. and those around them, of course. But and because of that, I think she was able to do this in order to better deal with things. And like I said, I mean, she probably would not have posted, my opinion, if he was still around. At least not until she had gone a little further with the relationship with her father. It looked like she was just starting to rekindle some weird, awkward relationship with her father since her coming out towards the end there. Just
It
my
does kind
thoughts.
of make me wonder about the other novel, though, the Lilac found,
Well,
about her mum. You know, and I'm, it, her mum is still alive, but she's written this book about. So
Yeah, I
it's
feel
kind
like
of like,
in this one that her mother was barely there. Like I don't feel like this was much about her mom at all.
mhm.
Like she was just this little thing on the side that she sometimes referred to, but I mean that doesn't mean she was absent from her life. It just in this particular story, it's like they lived separately.
Mm,
Her father and her mother. And
yeah,
her,
Yeah.
I do agree, but I have to say that I think her mother, while being downplayed in this novel, actually had a really major role. I mean, the fact that her mother helped her get over um, the condition that she was suffering in her late preteens.
the
Like she,
obsessive compulsion.
yeah, yeah, you know, I mean, that shows the commitment that her mother had. Uh, she had difficulties, and the fact that she stayed with her father throughout everything, with the kids and all the things that her father did, and she was just really trying to put on a good face in a loveless marriage, you know, with the family,
Wait.
I
You
guess.
think it was a loveless marriage?
Mm,
dysfunctional, maybe.
yeah, well, I
Yeah,
mean,
Loveless.
definitely dysfunctional. Not well, or
yeah.
definitely not traditional. I would say.
Well, I guess Loveless wasn't quite it, but obviously there was it just kind of fizzled out as it went on later. I mean, it just seemed like they were having difficulty even standing each other. I don't know. I mean, obviously, Loveless was a poor choice. There was some love,
Sorry, I didn't
but
mean to pick
obviously
on you about it. I just
there was no physical connection really after a while, and it seemed like the mother, from from my view, was more. I don't know, like she was just trying to save the family,
Mm-hmm.
and her father seemed to be. I don't know if it was through fault of his own or not, but he seemed to be slowly throwing wrenches in the works at every opportunity. uh, but I don't know. So um, I've got some a question which I didn't write down, and so I'm gonna flub this. But essentially the curve at the end there, where it kind of through the whole novel. Okay, hold on. Let me start back over again. I'll start with the simpler question because I had a couple questions, but I'll start with the simpler one. At the beginning of the novel, I was led to believe that her father was promiscuous with other men and of varying ages, and I was actually expecting at some point it to come into play that he may have had poor relations with her brothers in a sexual manner.
I didn't get that feeling at all.
Get that
It
at
was
all.
just an early on, it was just some kind of feeling I got from what she was communicating. I don't think that that was what was intended, but it was just, and so therefore I had this like dark feeling coming throughout the
Mm.
whole book. And then when it ended, I was like, okay, that was unfounded. But
That's because at one point in time she is talking about him and the men, and she specifically refers to young men, which I think she meant the student, but I think it really did kind of set the tone of you're waiting to find out that he's, some kind of pedophile of some sort. In which doesn't really show that he is. I mean, I don't know how old that teenager was. He could have been 17. You know, that's kind of borderline. But I think the way she phrased it at the very beginning made you think that, uh-oh, this is not a good thing. This is a book about her father being a pedophile. But that's not what happened.
Yeah, I think you're right. That is about what happened with me and the kind of the feeling that I got from that. I mean, it wasn't anything that was clearly stated, and it was just my own thing of I was not familiar with the book or what it was trying to present with her father, so I was just kind of going to extremes with it and not knowing. So when like the legal stuff came up, I was like, oh boy, and it turned out he gave beer to an underage. It was like 17,
Oh.
but
It's on page 17, and it says, he appeared to be an ideal husband and father, for example, but would an ideal husband and father have sex with teenage boys?
yeah.
That's where that came.
And that's kind of, that's what I was thinking. And I using that as an example, and perhaps it might work for the rest of you as well, but did any of you get any impressions that did not end up coming through that were like that? I mean, or did the book even like throw a curve at you and something happened that you weren't expecting with how everything was softly presented?
I was kind of expecting her dad to do some like serious time, actually. So, I thought it was going to go way worse for her dad than it actually did. And, in that regard, I think he's he was a very lucky man. But and it did kind of, I don't know. I was expecting her father to be like a kind of bigger bad guy than he was, like I think, or not to say that he wasn't like, I didn't feel like he was a great dad to her, at all. But I was expecting like her dad to have like kind of more criminal activity actually, than he did from the way, and it's actually from the exact page that Kellisto just pointed out. I was really kind of like, oh crap, her dad's gonna do some serious damage here.
I have to say, I know nothing about Alison Bechdel except for, like, I've heard of the Bechdel test. But other than that, I knew nothing. So I was kind of I wasn't expecting the whole her a lesbian, as a counter to her father being, possibly being gay. Depends on how you look at it. He never came out, so I knew nothing. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. But that was the biggest surprise. And once it came out, then I could see how she was writing this, as the points she kept making at the beginning when she was a kid about how she, didn't want to wear dresses and all these things, and the complete opposite. He wanted a feminine girl, and she was not. And I see she was leading that up to, to coming out, kind of thing.
How about you, LilacSC? Any surprises for or against the what you have?
Surprises?
Yeah, or things that you were expecting to happen that didn't?
Well, honestly, when a family tragicomic, I didn't think that it would have as many funny parts as it did. Like when she was talking about her father's family never really leaving this little area of Pennsylvania, and they're watching, her and her mom and her brothers are watching their cousin's house be built like in their parents' backyard, and her mom's like, "This is not happening. Once you turn 18, I never want to see you again." Stuff like little moments like that, I found really endearing, and kind of, it really, I don't like there was good and bad. It wasn't just all bad.
Yeah, it didn't really pull any punches, did it? It just kind of put it out there.
I don't know about you, but the thing I found the most tragic was the mother's. It's like she had this life that she gave up, and I kind of felt bad for her that she ended up, coming from acting in the big city to this little town that there was like nothing. I mean, that's the impression that she gave anyway. I just felt it was like a life lost.
Yeah.
And her husband was like a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
For, what was going to happen next with his,
His Gatsbyism.
Yeah.
But I did feel like, and going back to what Kellisto was saying about her mum, giving up her life, I think that was actually like society norm for this era, right? I mean, women had children and were expected to stay at home with them. So yeah, I totally agree with you, but I don't think it would be like unusual for this time. And actually, so I haven't taken the test myself, but I feel like perhaps Alison's view of like watching her mom kind of go through all this stuff and give up, a lot of things and have to work like an incredible amount to finish like her PhD and do the theatre things as well as take care of the family and deal with his dad. Perhaps this is like part of what inspired her to get involved in kind of the feminism, movement, I guess.
They were a very academic family,
Yes.
like to begin with.
Yeah, holy cow, did I feel inadequate. It was like, oh god, I haven't read any of this.
And the very progressive couple that they were friends with, the Grzyewskis. I think at one point, Elsa says that she had heard that they had asked her mom and dad whether they would have a foursome or not. Like it was an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, a dynamic.
They had some interesting friends, but also that college was nearby, so they were able. The kids were, they probably grew up with the idea, yeah, you go to college after you go to high school, and that's what's next.
Excuse me. Okay, so I'm gonna throw a kind of an off-topic question here that seems almost inapplicable. What do you guys think of the art?
That's a good question.
I thought it was awesome, and really, really made things come alive to me.
Because she drew it all herself, right?
I think so.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think she's the artist.
I have to say that usually I'm like all about like the gorgeous art of something, and this art I think was perfectly appropriate for this novel. It was not overzealous. It was kind of had the watercolor effect to it. It was very consistent. You could actually recognize the people in most cases. In 99% of the pages, you could see it, and then you could also even see like family resemblances and stuff. But you could still pick the people apart. It was very clear. The writing was excellent, and it was just done really well. I really liked it a lot. She took a lot of time and effort and put into this. You can tell she put care into it just because of that fact in my mind. I mean, it doesn't look like she wanted to make it a perfect thing. It's a graphic novel, She wanted it to come off as a graphic novel, and I think she did really, really well. It was kind of a balance between an autobiography and your average fantasy graphic novel thing. And instead, it's just an autobiography that is a graphic novel as well. And I think she did really well, really well. Liked it.
Yeah, I think I agree. She hit the balance right. I think if it had been like colorized and perhaps drawn with a like bigger kind of emphasis on like photorealism or something like that, then I feel like it actually would have detracted from the story. In this case, the details of the story I felt were really important. So having the art, kind of take a more subtle role, is good. But I think actually there's a massive amount of skill involved in portraying the emotion through the style of art that she's used. So I don't think it detracts or says anything negative about her skill as an artist. In fact, I feel like it might be more difficult to portray emotion when you're using a limited palette like this.
Hmm.
And she actually, in the second one about her mother, the color scheme is actually this like pinkish maroon color.
Oh,
Thing.
cool.
It's definitely a style that works with her kind of illustration. And some of the pictures, even like, so for most of the pictures that are kind of storytelling, they have a style, but then they have some that like start the chapters that are very detailed. Each chapter had like a really detailed picture of something that just kind of had a little extra added. It was
I
really
agree.
nice.
In my experience in the art field, I mean, I've taken some art classes myself. The lack of materials tends to make your artwork a lot more creative. I mean, not to blow my own horn, but I mean, just the two colors was a lot more fun. I mean, well, I mean, black and white. I mean, they're not really colors, but it was just. I think that tends to lend itself to you pay more attention to the feeling of what you're doing. Uh, I mean, what's the Sin City author or illustrator? I mean, you've got like three colors max of black, white, and maybe red or yellow or something, on a page. It sometimes conveys emotion a lot more when you've got simpler colors like that. And definitely the case in this one. um,
And actually, you see it with Persepolis too. I think she just
Yeah.
used black and white.
yep.
And actually, that was even more stark because she used big swatches of black, especially for the women's clothing, which was really, I don't know, it was a statement in of itself. It kind of gave you a look of what you'd see every day, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I have to say that this is actually a slightly more difficult graphic novel for me to read. If I'm to visualize for everybody, there was my interest was or no, how difficult it was to read the book was kind of like this. When I got to the middle and she really was talking college terms, I was just like, oh my God, she's analyzing Ulysses and Odysseus. And I read both of those, and this is just flying right over my head. And she's even saying that it flew over her head at the time, and I feel even stupider than than I could normally. I was just like, wow, when she was going through that series, and then it just kind of started got over that hump, and then she started focusing on something new to tie into the whole overall story, and I was just like, okay, it's making sense now, and so if anybody else has any problems out there, just stick with it, he'll you'll get over the hump, and it'll pick back up. But boy, I have to say it kind of blew me away a little bit at some point with the words. Anybody else have
The
any?
words were difficult.
Yes.
I'll say it was. I'll gladly say it was me.
No, it was tough.
I'm gonna say LilacSC was like, nope, not a problem at all.
Well, I'm a little biased. I did choose this one, so it's not. But I flew through it in like a day and a half. For me, it was just like from the first few pages, maybe this is just my genre. I've got like 3 or 4 graphic memoirs under my belt, and I really enjoy them. And so this one was no exception. And then I listened to the Broadway musical music, which I had on when we were first starting to hang out. And, it kind of, even like after reading the tragicomic and then listening to the musical, it kind of added another layer of, it was like emotion brought to life that she was describing in the comic, and then you're hearing them sing these words.
Was this the first one that we did that is a musical as well? That we've done so far? I think it is.
Yes. Yes, I would say definitely yes. I actually don't know any other. I mean, even from stuff that we haven't talked about in Tomes and Tales, like stuff that you and I have read personally. I don't know of another graphic novel that's been turned into a musical. Do you?
Rat Queens the musical was fucking fantastic. I'm kidding. But
Who would be, though?
Yeah, totally.
No, where's that?
Yeah, exactly. But it's so unusual, I think, which kind of this whole novel is quite unusual. So I guess
I haven't seen it. Has anybody else seen the musical?
Sadly, I have only seen what was performed for the Tony Awards. I haven't actually seen the musical itself.
But you do own the soundtrack for it?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
I take it that it's pretty good then, since you're
I enjoy it. Like, I think my favorite one is when they're talking about Fun Home, telling people to come down and use the Bechdel Fun Home when they've got someone to embalm, and all this. It's a funny song.
Okay, so here's.
I enjoy the music. It was good.
So here's my question for the group. What part of Alison's kind of... So for me, the novel evolved, actually. At first I expected it to be kind of about like her dad, and like I said, I was expecting things to really go badly for her dad, which, he died, so... I guess it doesn't get much worse than that, but you know what I mean. But it didn't actually. It kind of evolved into more of like a coming of age kind of story. So, and that was really cool. I actually liked that more. But what parts of Alison's kind of childhood or growing up, or that whole path, that whole growth, I guess, could you most relate to? Like, was there anything that you read about her childhood and you were like, whoa, that happened to somebody else? Or like, oh, I remember that kind of thing when we were kids? Or, is there anything like that was particularly relatable for you?
The OCD. I have OCD. So her description of like the little things, that was and then it really endeared me to her mom when her mom started, taking dictation for her journal entries. Because I mean, that's an extra step she didn't have to do to help her mom, or to help her daughter kind of work through some of that. So it spoke volumes about her mom and her dedication to her kids.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Probably the biggest.
So to answer your question, no. All right, next person. No,
well, I was thinking this would be most difficult for you to answer.
actually, there was something that I kind of related with, and that was her writing, and then not writing, her critique of her own diary entries. And I don't mean like when she was doing the OCD thing. I mean when she was like the dot dot dot. I started hesitating to write it, and then later on I would lie to myself in my own personal thoughts on paper. And that's something that I did when I was young. I kept a journal or two, and then I reread them, and I was like, "Wow, this is crap." I got rid of them actually, but it was the whole idea that I was actually writing to myself in a way that looked good in some ways, and didn't in others. And it was like I was trying to come up with excuses when I was putting it on paper, and the only person that ever would read it would be me. So I couldn't understand why I was doing that. And I think she was kind of doing the same thing at some point. And I did feel a bit of a connection with that part. So, ha.
No, I felt the same way, but I think that anybody who keeps a diary as a kid, right, is gonna look back on some of the first entries, and especially when you're like 16 and you're looking back on the ones that you wrote when you were 12, you're like, oh my god, was I really that person? I hate that person. That person is an idiot. That person doesn't know which way, you know. So yeah, I think that anybody who's written a diary as a teenager can relate to that. Or well, I can at least. And then I totally the OCD a little bit as well. Like I remember like counting things, you know, quite frequently. So yeah, I can, and looking for patterns and things as well. So I can relate to that as well. It's kind of interesting, like when I look back on it now, it's like, oh yeah, I actually, and there's a couple of things that I hadn't thought about in a very long time, and it's like, oh, that was kind of exactly the same as that behavior that she's talking about there. Interesting. Actually, I really appreciated that. And it's a little bit of like self-discovery as well while you're reading it. It's just pretty cool.
Actually, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say there was only one thing in this entire book I could relate to. Having been an only child of a teenage mother, who never had their own home, or even their own bed until they were 9. The only thing I could relate to was the whole everyone living but together but separately. We were always going from relative's house to relative's house, and I just kind of, being the little introvert girl that I was, existed in my own little world. Didn't have kids well, I had cousins, but I didn't have siblings to play with, and we certainly didn't have a big house. I would have been the kid on the bike saying, "Why do you live in a mansion?" They would have seemed so rich to me.
Yeah. I do have to say that I actually related most to getting my first period. I'm sorry.
Actually, you know what? I did too, because I did the same thing she did. Toilet paper works. I was so embarrassed by the whole thing.
I was actually very surprised at how revealing she was about herself, of her first sexual experiences and knowledge and stuff, and how clear of a memory she had about it. I mean, obviously, I think her diaries ended up helping her considerably with that, but I don't know. A lot of my younger years are more blurry than the exact nature that I picked up in that in this she wrote. I don't know if and I'm pretty sure that she's older than I am, at least judging by the dates.
She's older than me, and I'm older than you, so yes.
I was just going to say I'm pretty sure she's older than me, but that's I'm pretty sure she's older than all of us.
Yes.
But it was, I don't know, it was very clear and well presented to a point that I feel that I have a lot of memory loss after reading her book. I'm trying to recall similar times, when you first growing up and different experiences you had. And I know that she had some entries that she referred to here and there, but still, she presented it very, very well, as far as I could tell. I guess her brothers and her would be the best judges, but um, so yeah, I think I'm pretty well set. Anybody else got anything else to donate to the conversation?
Well, I guess, did you enjoy it? That was the.
Yes.
I did. I'm
Yeah.
moving on to the next one.
Yes, I definitely did. I really actually kind of like coming of age stories, because I think they make me feel more human. Understanding that other people had similar experiences, and I'm not a total weirdo. It's always good. Yeah, I really liked, and um, yeah, I have a lot of respect for her actually after reading this as well. What an insane childhood to kind of live through. I mean, as if living like in a funeral home isn't kind of weird enough, with dead bodies frequenting your home, then she has all this other stuff to do. So yeah, just incredible, and for her to have like such compassion for her father as well, and not just like um, completely rebel against him and be like, "I'm never talking to you again," kind of thing. I thought was incredible as well. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Her her memoirs are incredibly interesting, and she transferred them to the medium very well.
Mm-hmm. How
I
about you,
really enjoyed
Callisto?
it. I really enjoyed it. I got it at the library, and I had it about 3/4 read within one evening. And it really sucked me in. At first I was reading and I was thinking, yeah, I'm not sure I'm gonna like this, but I just kept reading and kept reading and kept reading. I was like, oh, okay, I'm done. The only reason I didn't finish it is because I was really tired and had to go to bed.
Um, I have to say, not being female in this, myself not being female, having the male perspective on it, I actually enjoyed it as well. I did feel slightly uncomfortable at times because I felt like I was reading somebody else's diary. But I have to say that also kind of makes it better. Um,
So you were reading somebody's diary.
Yeah,
exactly. So, you get that naughty feeling from it at certain points. But I have to say, I enjoyed this in a different way. If someone were to say, "Oh, how does it compare to something like Rat Queens?" I'll say, "It doesn't. It's so different. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a completely different way. It's like going from a manga to, like Deadpool to Rat Queens. I mean, they're all really different mediums, and then jumping into an autobiography presented like this, Mouse, or other style graphic novels. I did enjoy it quite a bit. It was more serious, and it presented a lot of darkness, um, or dark atmosphere and attitudes, things that could happen in anybody's house, but it was really good. It was really good. It was not. I guess I was expecting it to be a bland and boring story, and while not exciting, it was not bland or boring at all. It was very intriguing, and it was kind of nice to look into somebody else's eyes, living in completely different circumstances for me. So I enjoyed it. So, hey, looks like 4 thumbs up today.
Definitely.
All right, so on to a preview of next week. We have Low, which, no, the image is not upside down. It's almost all underwater. So this one was picked by, was it you, Kashcah?
Nope, this one was picked by Helen.
Oh, it was picked by Helen. That's right. Okay, which couldn't be with us today. But yeah, I look forward to this. Actually, I have to say some of us may have already read this, but there's no harm in reading it again. So yeah, that's about it. So we'll all see you next time, folks. I hope you all enjoyed it. I know I did. As always.
Yeah, thanks for the pick, by the way.
Yeah,
Really
definitely.
good one.
Good
Yep.
choice. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.